Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth from lifeonfire.com, and welcome to Life on Fire TV. I've got my main man, Scott Britton, here today.
Dude.
From the Competitive Edge podcast.
Fired up to be here, brother.
Fired up to be here. And so, guys, we're going to dive into a little bit on Scott's journey because the guy's a total badass, but we're also going to dive into really cool concepts about marketing. And I think one of the big takeaways for here today is he has an amazing strategy that not only is great for us to go through here today, but he's going to give us the link for that strategy so that you can reference all the tips that he gives about how to not only start, but to crush a podcast and to keep up the marketing so you have lots and lots of downloads to move your products and services. So stay tuned and we'll catch you on the other side. Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth here, and I'm a kick-ass business coach, and I'm on an absolute mission to help you find your purpose in life, to help you love what you do for work every single day, to help you be the rock star that you are meant to be, to make more money than you ever thought was possible, and to have more time freedom so you can actually enjoy the life that you're living. I'm here to help you set your life on fire. All right. We're back. Mr. Scott Britton here today, and man, where to start with you? I think that we're going to cover a couple different things. We're going to dive into mindset. We're going to dive into marketing, networking, and purpose. But I think I'd like to start with a little bit about just your college experience. So Scott and I were hanging out at the World Domination Summit, and we were pretty much figuring out our plan on how to dominate the world. I think we got there.
We're close. Dude.
We're close, man. We're
very close.
Just moved out here to San Diego, so now we can plot.
Step one.
Step one, San Diego. So it's good. So tell us a little bit about college, and that'll set the foundation.
Yeah, man. So I went to school in New Jersey at Princeton, and definitely snuck in because I could play football. I had no business being there academically, and I'd say that for me, it was a really interesting experience because I came from this big public high school. Not a lot of people went to schools like that, and everybody there's name was a lot of people's there's name was Weatherington, and from some fancy country day school and all these things. And I guess I really defined myself as an athlete and as a football player there. And for me, I just learned a lot about resilience and mental toughness.
Huge.
Because that was the way that I could compete and get an edge in what I wanted to accomplish as a collegiate athlete. Mm-hmm. So that was a huge part of my experience. And I don't know what.
I think I want to dive into mindset there because I know for me, some of you guys have heard my story to why I have my football number tattooed on my wrist. I think we had a couple cocktails in us where exchanging football war stories. Now for me, I mean that was a crazy experience where I had created I learned mental toughness. My coach shaped my life, and that was at the high school level. Mm-hmm. At the collegiate level, I can't even imagine. Do you have any clips? Do you have any clips of you because as a linebacker, of you just decleating a quarterback or laying someone out?
I have some good clips.
All right.
I watch them when I'm sad.
See, well that's part of a technique that I teach is called Moment on Fire, where if you're having a tough moment or if you're having negative thoughts in your mind, you instead of experiencing that all the time, you just go back in your mind to a place where you did something amazing. In my case, it was a football moment. That's why I got this tattoo to remind me of how tough I was when I was 17. And if I'm 32 now and I'm being a wuss in business because something happened, it's I can think about me at 17 laying a quarterback out or blocking someone as a center. And so what you said is so cool is that, if you have something going on in your life, you watch those clips. Mm-hmm. So let's roll some tape. I want to see some of Scott laying some people out. So let's do it. All right, so dude, that was sick, man. Thanks, awesome, man. Clips, and I can see why that would fire you up.
Yeah, man. I think actually, one of the things I really want to talk about is my freshman year, I tore my ACL.
Okay.
It was my first injury I've ever had in my life, and it was one that had a year rehab. I didn't know if I was ever going to be the same. And I ended up tearing my ACL again my senior year, and I never came back the same player after I tore my ACL. I had a great career, but was never quite as fast, was never quite as explosive as I was before the injury. But I took an approach after that happened that I think we can apply universally in our lives that really helped me live without regrets, which to me is super important because one of my biggest fears is looking back on my life and saying, what if I could have done more? Like, what if I didn't do that thing that I would dream of? I have to imagine that pain is probably worse than anything else out there.
I feel like everyone thinks about that, like, no regrets. I mean, everyone, I think if you're human, I think that we all experience that. We all think about, we don't want to regret things in life. And I think that's also the sign of an entrepreneur and a warrior, someone that doesn't want to look back, in that situation. So what happened from there?
Yeah, so what happened was I got surgery on my knee, and I remember telling myself, like, a lot of this, how my body heals is out of my control. But what I can control is the effort that I put into my rehab.
Yeah.
So for 12 months, I did not skip a single repetition on a single exercise for a year. And I literally did every single thing that was in my power to recover.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to do. Like, you can imagine like going to the gym and doing like 3 sets of 10 for like 6 to 8 different exercises and like never not doing 10 for a full year. That's actually really, really hard. Like thousands and thousands of exercises where you're consistently building congruence between what you say and what you actually do.
Sure.
And for me, like, I was totally okay with the outcome of not necessarily like ever being like as good as I was or as quick as I was.
Yeah.
Because I did all that I could.
Sure.
And it was like a no regrets effort to have a no regrets life.
Okay.
Or experience after that. And for me, like, that's like incredibly freeing. And it taught me something really valuable because a lot of my friends like, dude, like, sucks you didn't come back as fast. Like, but like,
dang, you're 40 times low. And
but I was actually like had incredible peace, and that taught me, like, for whatever aspiration it is, whether it's like building a business, whether it's a romance, whatever it is, like, if I do everything I can within my control, to thrust myself towards that outcome, like, I'm gonna be happy, with whatever happens.
I think that what's huge about that is, and what's so cool about that is at the end of the day, you're doing literally the best that you can do, and that's one of the 4 agreements is like, do the best you can do at all times, and there's what else can you do? So when you think of it in that way, and you take what Scott just shared and taught, it's like it lets off all this pressure. Like, if I just give it my best, you can't be mad at yourself. You can't regret or beat yourself up or have any of those self-inflicting like negative thoughts. It's like, it might be the product launch that doesn't go your way. It might be the podcast that doesn't turn out to be the big $1 million podcast. But it's like, if you can honestly look at yourself in the mirror and say you did your best, I mean, you can be happy in that piece. So that's a big one. That lets off all this steam out of the pressure cooker to allow you to just enjoy the ride. That's what a life on fire is about, enjoying the journey.
Absolutely, man. You have to define success as something that was within your control.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's the recipe for happiness. So for me, like, success is like, did I give my best effort?
Yeah.
Did I feel good about whatever I'm putting out in the world, whatever I'm creating, whatever I'm doing? And that's what success is. Like, success for me is not comparing myself to other people who might have achieved more than me. Because anytime there's like an inconsistency there, where like your expectation and reality, like that gap is like your happiness.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, just like making it super focused internally and on your efforts, for me, has just been huge. And that was an instance of that.
That's a big takeaway. And I think, while we're kind of on the mindset pillar, and guys, I mean, at the end of the day, we go through these different pillars with special guests like Scott, because, I mean, the guy's living a life on fire. He's got the competitive edge. And I mean, this is what it takes, to get to be living your purpose and loving what you do and getting there. And how we think about success, how we think about our days and what we do, that dictates our happiness and fulfillment along the way. I mean, I've got clients that beat themselves up about a product launch that did 50 grand, but it didn't do 100. And yet it's like, dude, you did 50 grand. Like, let's celebrate that. You know, did you do the best you could? I mean, that would have changed perspective a lot. So cool. Now, did you have one more tip in there?
Yeah. So I had another experience too. So and there's some continuity in the story here.
Okay.
So I came back, and I was not necessarily as quick or as explosive as I was. So I had to figure out another way to compete at a really high level.
Yeah.
And I found that the best way for me to do that was to watch like more film than any other player, and really like almost like be able to predict plays of opposing teammates before things would happen. So literally, I'd be in the game and I would know the formation, and then I'd know like all the different variations of like what could happen in that formation memorized, and then I would know like what my specific key would be to determine like what I could do. So like a lot of times I knew exactly what was going to happen within the first half second, and like that for me like was
your edge.
That was my edge.
Yeah,
that was my edge, man. And you know, I was able to become an all Ivy League linebacker, become a captain of my team, not because I was the biggest, fastest, or strongest, but because I understood like where there was an opportunity for me to exploit that was within my control, and really double down on that.
Nice.
And for me, like that was just like huge learning, because I was like the third shortest guy on my team. I was a 5'10", 210-pound linebacker, like not the biggest guy.
Hey man, I'm 5'10" too. I like to
Dude,
say 5'11".
Oh, I always
because I went to the
5'11".
doctor and you know she said 5'11". I mean, maybe I was wearing shoes, but
dude, listen, man, I got the spike, the hair spike. I'm 5'11".
Yeah.
I'm 5'11".
5'11".
If anybody asks, but for me, like that was like really awesome, and you know, I try to apply that in my life now, where it's like, okay, whatever I'm trying to accomplish, what can I control? And then like of those things that I can control, like what variables, if I like really just focus on this one thing, will have kind of like universal scalable benefits, right? So like this is like something I kind of thought about, like, so for football, it's like, well, I could try to get faster, I could try to get bigger, but like if I could predict the play that was going to happen,
there's your speed.
I could be there before everybody else.
Huge.
And for, you know, just like a mentality, I guess, where it's like scalable edges, I think about like, I know there's a lot of marketers that probably watch the show, like, okay, well, I could learn like Facebook advertising, I could learn Google, I could learn, you know, how to YouTube, all that stuff. All of it's insanely valuable. But what like universal element is like going to apply to all those things?
Yeah.
For me, I think copywriting, right? Like I'm going to have like a great Facebook ad, like it's going to have good copy.
Yeah.
A great Google like search title that people click on it, great copy. YouTube, great copy. So like if I get excellent at copy and double down on that, like I'll have a much more of an edge on all of those platforms.
Sure.
Than just the guy who like
knows just one.
Yeah. Right. And it just like is transferable.
Huge.
So you know, I just encourage people to like think about like what things are in their control, what can they exploit, and then like do the results of those exploitations scale in multiple areas in case you want to change things up.
You know, I think this is an awesome takeaway for everyone. And what I love is that, I mean, it's a great takeaway for me, and thinking about the concept of where's your leverage and double down on that. You know, that's what I'm, you know, getting out of that. And I think what's so cool is that, you know, you don't have to be, you know, this entrepreneur that you see on the videos or on the stage that has it all and has like the confidence or the looks or all these things. It's you're finding what you're good at and where the leverage is, and then you're just putting more work into it. You know, it's like for, you know, me being the underdog football player, 5'10", well, 5'11", as a center, 150 pounds, it was one of those things where, you know, where was my leverage? Where could I double down? And my thing was, you know, I, as a center, I mean, the guys were way bigger than me, so how do I create leverage? And it was like I started doing wrestling, which was super embarrassing. I lost every match my freshman year. It was awful in a singlet, you know what I mean? And like, I mean, just imagine, in 8 seconds, boom, every time, just got my butt whooped. But it's like, I want to learn how to maneuver my body and create leverage. And then it's like first in the gym, last to leave. I was going to be the strongest little 150-pound guy I could and work harder than everyone else. So for you, it was studying and like, you know, getting that extra half second. For me, it was like, I'm just going to work harder than almost everyone else on the field so that I had that little extra stamina. I had, that stuff. And that's what worked. And I think for entrepreneurs, it's like, it's not going to be easy for some of us. I mean, some of us have really tough journeys and paths, but where can you double down and be the best at something, and
Right.
that's a lasting, nugget right there. So
Yeah, and I think too, like think about where the lion's share of rewards go to, right? Just off the top of my head, like Tony Robbins, probably the most recognizable coach
Sure.
out there.
Yeah.
Who's the third best coach in the world? Who's the second best? I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of coaches, but I don't know like who's critically
They don't have the
acclaimed.
mind share. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for like any specific thing, like doubling down, becoming the absolute best at something, you're just gonna reap so many rewards that all of these kind of like second tier people will never reap.
Yeah.
And or not, at least not the same extent. So I'm just a firm believer in like whatever you love, whatever makes you on fire, whatever leverage you have that like you enjoy the process, like lean in and like double down, baby.
Put a shoulder in.
Yeah,
Lay
dude.
him out. Lay it out.
Because that's that's where the lion's share of the reward's gonna be.
That's it. So cool. So I wanna kind of dive into a couple other things. So mindset, I think I got a lot out of that. So I know that
Good, brother.
you will too. And I want to dive into let's tiptoe into purpose, because I think when you have that mindset, like the reason for you to lean into that and to really go that extra mile was because you obviously, I mean, you were so passionate about football that you were willing to go through the pain and go through the rehab and do all that stuff. So how about business? Tell us a little bit about what you do with the Competitive Edge.
Sure.
And let's dive into why you do it, because I feel like purpose for us entrepreneurs is a big reason why we are willing to lean in and go the extra mile. Or for some people that don't have or feel like they're living in their purpose, may not feel like leaning in, or may just do it half speed. So
Totally.
a little background on what you do and why.
Yeah, totally. And I'm happy we were talking about this, because honestly, just to be totally candid with everybody, this is something I'm constantly learning more about myself.
Sure.
Constantly redefining, and then constantly shifting how I pursue my life.
Yeah.
So for me, like, my background is actually in software. I help lead business development at a company called Single Platform. We were a product for local businesses.
Okay.
We got acquired about 2 years ago for $100 million. And
That's sweet.
after I stuck around for a little bit, I decided to move to Brazil to pursue this like 4-hour work week dream that we all
Were you a
have.
Zumba instructor out there? Is that what's going on?
That would actually be interesting to get a Zumba instructor here and find out what their purpose, because I would be pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
And like, I guess like for me, when I was down there, I just wanted to still be involved in business. So I started coaching and training and creating training products.
Okay.
And I came back to South by Southwest, and I was having fun like doing like coaching and doing training products and all that kind of stuff. But what I really like missed, the feeling that I missed, was just like feeling inspired. And what I've realized is that a lot of times, like, what our purpose and like what we want to give to the world is what we need ourselves, or want to give to ourselves. Yeah. And for me,
that's an interesting take right there.
For me, what I realize is like I love being in an inspired state more than anything. That's when I'm happiest, when I'm living in the creative spark, when I'm feeling inspired. Like, that is where I'm money. Yeah. Other times that I love laughing with my friends. I love joking, but like that is like where I want to spend the most amount of my time. Yeah. So for me, with the Competitive Edge, like the reason I created that podcast, and I'm still trying to figure out like my bigger, grand, like high level purpose, but like I know at the core, like what I love is like inspiring, entertaining, and motivating. Yeah. Now, that could be in the capacity of a CEO of a software company, because I'm actually looking to get back into that space. It could be as a coach. It could be as a podcast host. Yeah. But like, I want that is like my core function in that specific thing. And for me, like, I was listening. The reason I started the podcast is because I love having interesting conversations with people like that, you. But also, what I love, like, I would be on the subway commuting every single day. Like,
back in New York?
back in New York, just like listening to podcasts, just like getting fired up, getting motivated. And the reason I started the podcast was because I wanted to provide the same thing for other people.
Yeah.
And I want the same thing for myself.
Sure.
Like I figure I get off there, I feel like I'm having a caffeine shot.
That's it.
And if people, like if I can make like even just a couple people go out there and achieve or accomplish or do things they wouldn't normally be able to do because they're feeling in an inspired state.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
There's
that's
fulfillment
awesome.
right there.
That's contribution. That's love and connection. Like those are needs that I need to fill, and I think that's my why.
Yeah.
And so like, my life, like it has evolved a ton already. It will continue to evolve, but I know that like where I'm happiest and like where my purpose is most alignment with that is when I'm in a position to inspire, motivate, entertain.
I think what's so big about that is that ultimately I think some of the most successful entrepreneurs, from doing these shows and meeting and studying this stuff, I mean, what I'm finding is that most entrepreneurs, their purpose and why, to your point, I never thought about that way, but to something that you crave is what you want to give to other people.
Yep.
And that's really interesting. Like I crave, so my whole purpose is to help people love what they do for work. But what's so fascinating is that that's, if I actually think about it in your way, that's something that I've been craving myself my entire life. But now that I'm actually doing that, I have to live it myself. And so I think that it's interesting is that you have an awareness about knowing what makes you tick. I mean, you understand what gives you energy, and that creates that flow state. No different than being a basketball player, Michael Jordan, hitting, swishes from all around the court. It's like, what fires you up. Like I get on coaching calls 7 hours, 8 hours in a row, 30-minute calls, and it's like I am fired up. Like I'll call my girlfriend and I'm just like, beep, beep, beep. Like I won't shut up because I'm just so fired up about helping other people. And I think when you identify what gives you energy and something that you could do if you weren't getting paid and you would just do it anyway, it's like that molds into being your purpose. And I think to use this is a really cool new way of looking at it, is understanding the things that fire you up, and maybe that has a big correlation to what is your purpose. And I think for so many entrepreneurs, for it to shift from, instead of just being about you, and it's not, it's about the contribution, same way with me and other entrepreneurs, like that piece of, as soon as you make the business about helping others, that's like a greater level of enlightenment. That's a greater level of a life on fire. That's where you are getting so much meaning out of life, and you're getting so much enjoyment out of seeing what you do flourish in other people. And I think
Totally.
that, I'd love, I mean, like I said, if one person, if you take this right now and you say, what, I'm going to drill down and take action and lean into, the XYZ strategy and dive in, it's like, how amazing would you feel from that? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I encourage everybody listening to go do that. And I think one thing too to realize is like, there were moments where I felt selfish, that I'm like, oh, I really like entertaining and inspiring, but like I should be like feeding people in, Africa
Guatemala.
or something or whatever, because like that's really like what's important. But I think, in order for us to like become really awesome at something, we have to love that thing.
Yeah.
And where we're gonna have the biggest impact is like whatever we become really good at and whatever we love. So like in reality, like you actually are, it's okay to realize you love something that doesn't necessarily seem as like altruistic as other things, because like over the course of your life, like you're gonna become amazing at that thing. You're gonna want to naturally help people at whatever that is. You're going to help people. And like that to me is like, the alignment that we're all looking for.
Yeah.
Like what do we love that we can also feel good about with our lives, with our journeys, with our careers.
Yeah.
And they're all often it's like the same thing, and just don't fight it. Like I fought it for a long time, and I've like fought business, like acquiring business skills, whether that's like doing stuff that's like heavily metrics focused or design or building software. And at the end of the day, like I just want to inspire people. I just want to fire people up, and like I actually am way better suited at creating impact for other people and for my family and myself in terms of the quality of life that I can provide, which by the way, I think is our greatest legacy.
Sure.
So like for me, like just understanding that and just leaning into it and being like, that's it.
That's it. And just taking action on that, and don't spend the time doing the things that you're not great at or you don't love, and get those off the plate as fast as we can. So what I want to do is I want to dive into marketing because, and guys, you definitely want to go to lifeonfire.com, check out the show notes on this episode. You're going to find a link to a training. It's basically a training. I mean, there's so much information there, and you go through all these steps, very outside the box techniques and steps on how to market a podcast. What I love is that some of those techniques can be used to market anything. So I want to drill down into marketing. And so give us some techniques about, launching a podcast.
Yeah, totally. So like when I think about launching anything, I always think of the process of like reverse engineering success. Okay. So for me, what I first think about is like, how am I going to get distribution? Like what's the key way to get distribution? And then how can I optimize around that? And then like, what have other people done to do that? And I kind of like work backwards from like the result that I want.
Because it's kind of proven, you know what I mean? As opposed to just trying to like invent or go the hard route. You're defining, it sounds like you're choosing something that is proven to work, and then you're just figuring it out.
Right. And I'll give like the basic podcast marketing 80-20, but I also do want to talk about some like unique strategies that I think less people are using. So for podcasts, I have a friend who works at Earwolf. It's one of the largest podcast advertising networks. Essentially, 80% of the best podcast traffic in the world comes from iTunes.
Yeah.
So there's all these TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud. You want to double down on iTunes. And then the number one way that people find podcasts on iTunes is organic discovery. You could, unless you have already a huge, massive audience of hundreds of thousands of people, like the best way you're going to grow is organic discovery. And the best way to find, again, in this process of working backwards, the best way to do well in organic discovery is to produce content consistently, because the algorithm, in my perception, works from like a popularity within a time box window. So like the number of downloads that you get within like 2 days, 4 days, whatever it is, that's what pushes you up on top of this new and noteworthy section, which is where you're going to get like the bulk of your organic discovery. So the easiest way to increase the number of downloads you get within a specific time span is not necessarily having other people promote your podcast. It's actually just to produce more episodes. So there's a balance of, do I produce 1 time a week? Do I produce 5 times a week? Do I produce 3 times a week? For me, like I did like 5 times a week and I did 3 times a week. I really didn't see a huge difference. Because most other people, it's all about relative effort with things like this. So like, I don't need to be the absolute like 10x better than the next guy. I just need to be 1x better. It's like Google search results. To get the lion's share of the search result, you just need to have like 1 more inbound links, not like 50 more inbound links. Most people are doing 1 episode. So I think if you do 3, you're safe with like optimizing the organic discovery of iTunes.
And so you're kind of referring to the beginning stages of you launch the podcast, get on the new noteworthy, and then, so it's what I like is that, what I love about iTunes is that, we did about, a little over 50,000 downloads our first, within, I think the 8 weeks, the new noteworthy.
Nice.
And that's like, for anyone stepping into this, that's basically, some of that organic audience. I mean, imagine if you could build, 50,000 people or 20,000 people as an audience, boom, for free on iTunes. So to tap into that. Now, is there anything keyword related to kind of move up the organic, or is it really just more, if one of their algorithm, part of the algorithm, which I totally with you, is the number of downloads. So more shows equals more downloads in the beginning. That's why, I think people do, even if you're a 3-day-a-week podcast, you still do 7 days a week in the beginning, you know what I mean? And like juice it up. But like anything on organic and keywords or anything to
So I think like
search?
Yes, this is actually something that I haven't dove as much into, but I'm always thinking about how do I create residual benefits, right? And I know that keyword search is a great way to do that, because listen, like people go on there, let's say they love, you, or they love my friend Noah Kagan or Tim Ferriss or whoever it is. People will search for that person's name and they'll find the episode. So like, how do you get to be the top episode in that particular search term? I mean, you include it in the show notes and the episode title and stuff, but I'm not sure like how to get number one. And that's something that I want to figure out. But I think like perhaps maybe we could talk about like some strategies too that you could use in the beginning and at the end, and if you already have a podcast, because I'm sure some of your listeners already have some.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's dive in.
So what I noticed is that I originally started out with this idea that like I need to get huge guests who have like huge Twitter followings and Facebook stuff to promote my show, because like that's going to be huge.
Yeah.
And I had guys on there that had over 100,000 people following them on Twitter, tweeting out my episode. And what my analytics showed me was that I got like 35 clicks, 38 clicks, and maybe like 20 of those listened, right? And interestingly enough, I had a couple of guests that were much less names. Like I don't even know if they had 2,000 or 3,000 followers.
Yeah.
But their listens were incredibly higher because they promoted the episode to their mailing list.
Yeah.
And people's mailing list is like where people really feel connected to that person are going to dive into whatever they're saying.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, how can we then reverse engineer how to get featured in mailing lists?
Yeah.
Well, I've come up with a couple strategies that we could talk about today.
The competitive edge, if you will.
Yeah, baby. So, for people that are marketers out there, you probably know that like your mailing list is a very valuable asset. You don't want to just mail out anything. And a lot of times, like for people that get on a lot of podcasts, like some people that are going to be on your show, if you're watching, they're not going to mail out somebody else's episode to the mailing list. So a couple strategies you can use is just ask them to feature your episode in the PS section of an existing mail out. And that way it's not like, hey, you have to send this whole new email out just for me. But if you're sending this out, like this is a good thing
like,
for your...
Can I get a little PS action?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, why not?
Yeah, totally. And like
it's not a big ask. It's like
not
a little
big ask.
It's like a little favor. And I mean, and at the end of the day, it still benefits them to some degree too.
Totally, yeah, and it's way less obtrusive. And then you can actually too play around with the structure of your show.
Yeah.
Right? So I was thinking like, what can I do to get guests to want to promote this? Well, this is really powerful in the coaching industry. All these people on their show, they like want coaching. These coaches, they want to advertise that they're amazing coaches. They want to show what they can do. They want to get more. They also want to like serve their audience. So like, what's better than like a live coaching session that I can broadcast on my show and they can share with their audience to basically show a commercial for this is how I help people.
Sweet.
So have coaches and other people that provide services ask their audience, somebody in their audience, hey, I'm going to do a live like mentoring session. Does anybody want to come onto the show? And then do a 3-person episode where that person gives live feedback to that particular person from their audience, and then they share that they're incentivized to want to share that with their whole audience.
That's cool. So basically, I mean, ultimately what you're doing is you're making the episode more valuable for that particular speaker. And what's funny is that I feel like a lot of podcasters, there's a mentality that you have someone on the show and they don't sell, right? Like maybe they can offer a freebie or like an opt-in, or like, they can send someone to like a free thing or like name their website or their show. But what's interesting is no one really allows people to come on their show and like sell something. And so if you're trying to get, like, we've got a totally awesome rocking, hump day Q&A episode you guys got to check out. But we're talking about how do you attract the big name speakers and how do you get them to want to share it? So to your point, and this is just like, we're kind of just like on the fly thinking, but like, what I love about that is it adds more value on the show to get them to want to promote it. But like in some cases, I mean, there's all these podcasts where there's sponsors and the mid-roll and all this marketing junk in the shows that has become common. So why not, if you get a big name speaker or a coach on there, what if they had the ability to sell an offer at the end, to go buy something? That's no different than a sponsorship read where someone's saying, go buy 99 Designs or GoDaddy. Who the heck cares if the guy's selling $1,000 program? And now that's a selling opportunity. Hey, check it out, guys. I'm on Scott's show. And then I send it to the list because at the end of the day, what if I'm selling $1,000 coaching program? Then did we get, I think we got something.
Dude, I'm
right
jamming
there.
on this. I'm loving this right now. And then also, like, those people are incentivized to sell because it's not like a static page. You're lured in after an hour of listening to this person provide value, just then subsequently like an offer after.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
And it adds value for the speaker because
Exactly.
what I'm finding is reaching out to people is like another interview. Like, even if I know the person or I don't know the person, when you reach out, successful people don't. I mean, it's cool. Like, I love being interviewed. Like, we're rising. You know what I mean? And it's cool, but there's a point at which successful entrepreneurs don't have time for it.
Right.
You know what I mean? They've done it 1,000 times, and they have bigger fish to fry. And it's like, what's in it for me? And this happened with Brian Tracy. And I said, to his team, it said, listen, and they were very clear, like, he's not interested in doing interviews and things. And I was like, well, how can I make this more valuable? Let's just have a conversation. I'm already in the office. Let's have a conversation. How do we make it more valuable? And I'm like, let's sell his program, and I'm doing a fundraiser for charity in this whole thing. And I was like, let's include Brian's digital download that has no cost. And yet we're going to give you a buyer's list. So in our situation is I'm thinking, how do I help charity and help Brian Tracy and help myself and help consumers listening all at the same time? And so what I ended up creating was, think of it as a show like this. We do an interview. At the end, we sell a $97 product. The product is my course, let's say your course, Brian Tracy's course, 10 other amazing courses. This bundle is worth like $10,000, legitimately, like $10,000 bundle for $97. And what's cool is that anyone that buys that, 100% of the money goes to charity. 100%.
I like that.
Like crazy, right? So who loses, right? Everyone wins. The customer gets an amazing bundle that they could never get at that price. Why would Brian Tracy or Scott or anyone want to be in the bundle? Is because for me as the guy organizing it, anyone that buys, I've got to give the customer, which would have to say yes to this, the customer information would have to be translated to Scott so he can deliver his product or service. So for Scott, if he ends up with a buyer's list of let's call it 500 people, and I have a product in there and I have a buyer's list of 500 people, and so does Brian Tracy, and so does the next person, the consumer is getting access to all the goodies, which they need. Like, we need to be able to send it to them. So and it would all be communicated this way in like the privacy and things like that. But for everyone individually, we would have a buyer's list. And a buyer's list of 500 people, that might cost tens of thousands of dollars to acquire that with advertising and things like that. So it's just a little shift. And because to your point about, you're adding value for that coach to make them to want to promote. Mm-hmm. Well, hey, with a podcast, we've got all these podcasters, sponsors at the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Totally.
And what does that do? That creates an environment where, they're like commercials. Like, I feel like it's a little cheesy. And instead, what if I, would you be upset if I brought Mark Cuban on the line and he crushed it with amazing content that you loved, and then he shared something that was the next step that you wanted to buy and it was a special offer at a discount?
That sounds
right?
That sounds awesome to me.
Like, why aren't people doing that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
no, it's like taking the webinar strategy, taking webinars in many ways, and porting them onto a podcast.
Yeah.
Which I think can be done very elegantly and without a lot of the hardcore pressure sales tactics that a webinar comes on the show.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be like there's only 3 spots left.
Right. Bill's in, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I think a little bit more class behind it, but it's no different than normal sponsorship stuff. And I think it's the next rev of like podcasting, and it's gonna get us better. Better guests equals helps you more. So it's
what if you create an entirely like discounted store? That whereas
affiliate links and
just
stuff could do.
accessible for the podcast listeners. I mean, merchants, like what I think the future of the internet is like people that provide thought leaderships that have audiences. Like those are the new storefronts of the internet. Making it as easy as possible for these people to have an inventory of products to sell, support that lifestyle is going to change the way that commerce is done. And I think, just the thing I want to hit home here, because I think this is super important, is you didn't ask, people are too, when you got kind of a blocker and it was like, people are too busy, we can't do this, he's not doing interviews. It's like, well, no, actually, what can I do to turn that no into a yes? Always ask, what can I do to turn the no into yes? How can I make this more valuable? And I'm even thinking about instances recently that I've had where people are like, oh, they're all booked. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to go bow my head in shame because I don't have a zillion download podcasts yet. And, reality, what I should be doing is how can I make this that valuable?
If someone says no, whether it's to buy our stuff or whether it's to be on a show like ours or to be on your show or to buy with you, it's because they don't see the value. And so, for Brian Tracy's team, he's really not crazy about interviews. Well, why is that? Because they produce nothing for us, and here's why. Well, how do we change that? You know what I mean? It's so it's cool. And it's knowing that you can get to a yes having a little bit of confidence to go in there and to be willing to work with solutions. And I feel one of the things I just see with you is you're the kind of dude that you're always thinking, what's the solution? Where so many people and entrepreneurs get in a situation, blow an ACL, and it's like, woe is me, I'm a victim. You find solutions. You see the positive within it, and you're going to study plays more instead of making excuses. Well, I'm slower. I've blown ACL that's recovering. Instead, I'm going to look at the tapes and find solutions. So we got to wrap a little bit. I think you and I, we could roll and rock and roll for days.
I feel like I have had espresso. I love it.
I know, it's the energy. So,
yeah, baby.
So here's what we're going to do. I want you to check out definitely our other episode because it's awesome. It's a really cool one. It's super short and it's Hump Day Q&A. So go to lifeonfire.com or definitely just go to Life on Fire TV and find the other podcast episode with Scott Britton. Also, I would love for you. How do we find you? I think go into the show notes page. You can get all of his contact info. Get the full list. I mean, we only scratched the surface on the podcast marketing. The guy's got how many steps? It was 9 or something or 11.
Yeah, I think I give 8 strategies of how to market a podcast that I've never seen anybody else do before.
Huge, and it's a link to his blog post. There's nothing, you know what I mean? We should be selling something now. But it's all free stuff. It's really good. It's stuff that I've never seen. I studied and got mentorship from all kinds of people. So definitely check that out on the lifeonfire.com show notes page. Find your podcast.
The Competitive Edge. Yeah, check the Competitive Edge out on iTunes. A lot of the same type of content that you see here on Life on Fire. And also check out lifelonglearner.com, my website. Lots of good written content there as well. That is your preferred medium.
But bam. And one last thing that I must ask.
Do it.
Is, it's a little crazy. And I want you to think outside the box on this. And so the last question is, what's one thing that most people don't know about you? Could be anything weird. It could be anything
thing that
funny.
Most people don't know about me. I would say that I actually love singing and dancing.
Whoa.
So, nothing brings me as much joy as dancing wildly like a goofball.
So are you going to, now that you live in San Diego, am I going to get that phone call or the text that says, I just feel like dancing?
I just want to dance. I mean, you got to be careful on the weekends if you go downtown, man, because I might be there just causing up a ruckus.
Just doing the cha-cha. And just...
Totally, man. And when I go to concerts or any venue with loud music where I can sing as loud as I can, but I can't hear myself, I feel like a really good singer. That's my happy place.
That's it right there. That's the zone. So, all right, man. Well, hey, this has been awesome.
Yeah,
glad to have you on here. And guys, hit the lifeonfire.com, grab the show notes, and let this be one of those just little reminders that if you're not doing what you love, then you're not watching enough Life on Fire TV. So watch a little bit more of that. Find your passion, find your purpose, do what you love, and set your business and life on fire.
I'm here to help you set your life on fire.